Hey guys, I've got a question for you. What's your go-to bait? After bass fishing for 60 years, my go-to bait is a deer hair jig. If you put a deer hair jig in my hand and told me that I could only fish with this one lure for the rest of my life, I wouldn't complain. Let me tell you something about 50 to 60 years of bass fishing and bass fishing tournaments and 25 years or more of guiding. I've thrown just about everything with hooks on it, trying to catch, bass. And, it didn't matter whether spinner baits, crank baits, plastic worms, or swim baits. And a lot of times those swim baits cost me more than a steak dinner. And yet, if I had to bet my Social Security check on getting a bite, I'd tie on a deer hair jig. Now, some of you young bucks out there are already clicking away thinking, yeah, this is an old man's lure. That's fine. More fish for me. What exactly is a deer hair jig? Well, it's real simple. It's got a lead head, a hook, and natural deer hair tied around it. It's that simple. I tie flies, I tie jigs, and I can tell you, you don't have to be a master craftsman to make your own. Just takes, the ability to either buy some lead head jigs or make your own. Buy some deer hair, and again, just tie the deer hair on the back of it. It's pretty simple. There's no rattles. There's no scent chambers. There's no jointed tails. There's no electronics required. In fact, this jig is so simple it doesn't even have a weed guard. If you wanted a weed guard, you could put one on there, but you don't need one. But that simplicity is exactly why it works. You see, a jig head with deer hair moves in a way that plastic can't begin to move. Deer hair moves when you don't do anything. Unlike plastic, you have to move the plastic to get the action. You don't have to with deer hair. Just the current alone will keep that deer hair moving. Those natural fibers, they just literally breathe underwater. They flare out, they pulse, they collapse, and they expand with the slightest little movement of the current. And when you pause, it still looks alive. I've watched bass follow spinner baits and turn away. I've seen their nose up to crankbaits or grab a crankbait and spit it out because they knew right away that it was not real. But a deer hair jig, when it stops, it settles. And when it settles, it looks even more vulnerable. Bass are predators. They don't just eat fast-moving things. They look for a meal that's easy. They don't want to expend any more energy than they have to. One of the things that's the beauty, I guess, of a hair jig is it catches fish 12 months out of the year. There is not a singular season that it works better than any other. Cold front, drag it slow. Post spawn, swim it. Summer heat, pitch it in the shade. Winter, hop it like a crawfish. In Florida, in places like Lake Istapopa, where I fish quite a bit, or Lake Okeechobee, the Kissimmee Chain, or even Lake Toho, I've seen big bass ignore flashy baits, but absolutely choke a bucktail jig that I crawled along the edges of the hydrilla. When the bite gets tough, and at 77, I see more tough days than good ones. That jig will still produce. It typically triggers big fish. And here's something tournament anglers won't always admit. Big bass don't like chasing all the time. They're efficient. When they chase a lure, they're expending energy. And that energy has to be reclaimed through what they're able to catch and eventually eat. If they don't have to chase a bait, that's good for them. And they know it. So that makes the hair jig even more efficient. A deer hair jig represents a compact, protein-packed meal. Crawfish, bluegill, shad. It can imitate all three of them at once, depending on how the fish interprets it. My first double-digit bass didn't come on some high-tech lure. They came on a deer hair jig. And over the decades of guiding, when a client needed a confidence bait, I'd quietly hand him a jig. Not because it was flashy, not because I was trying to sell him a jig or sell him, a different lure. It was because it was reliable. You see, it slows you down, and that's a good thing. Most anglers fish too fast, and myself included. They burn down a bank like they're late for supper. A deer hair jig forces you to be patient. You feel the bottom. You feel the cover. You feel the bait. And when the bite comes, it's not a tap tap. It's just wait. At my age, I appreciate a lure that makes me fish smarter, not faster. And here, this is another plus. Fish haven't seen it as much. If in fact it is an old timer's bait, well, these guys that are out there fishing today probably don't even own one, let alone fish with one. Walk into any tackle shop and look at the wall. It's all plastic. It's all flash, noise, bright packaging. A simple bucktail jig doesn't get the marketing love that a lot of the others get, which means pressured bass don't see it as much. And pressured fish are educated fish, giving them something natural and subtle, and you've suddenly created a whole different crowd of fish. The truth most anglers don't want to hear is you don't need 200 fishing lures. You need confidence in one. If you really learned how to fish a deer hair jig, swim it, drag it, hop it, dead stick it, you'd outfish 95% of the guys that are hanging out at the tackle shop. Not because it's magic, because it's much more natural. And natural never goes out of style. After 60 years of bass fishing, I've downsized a lot of things in my life, but I'll never downsize confidence. If I launch the boat tomorrow and can only bring one bait, tie me on a deer hair jig and let's go fishing. And if you've never truly committed to fishing one for a full day, try it. Leave everything else at home. Leave everything else in your box, in your tackle boxes, locked up so you can't get to them. You might just discover that the simplest lure in the boat is the deadliest one in the water. So give it a try, folks. You might be surprised. Thanks for watching.